So good afternoon to all. It's a great pleasure to welcome you to this new Europrivacy webinar to share with you, to give you an introductory overview of Europrivacy, its application, its origin and added value and relevance. So it's a great pleasure to welcome you. I'm today with my colleagues, Renata Radoc and Adrian Quesada, who will present some elements during the webinars, in particular with regards to the Academy and to the community website, and will complement my presentation. So without any further ado, let me start with a brief overview of the webinar structure. So we will start by a few words about GDPR certification, how it works, what are the main elements, main challenges, some characteristics of Europrivacy, the methodology overview, how to start certification, online resources, some practical actions, and Q&A. Few words about GDPR certification. So the first element to bear in mind that GDPR certification is a kind of very specific, special certification because it aims at enhancing transparency and compliance with the regulation, allowing data subjects to quickly assess the level of data protection and to demonstrate compliance with the regulation in general, which means that compared to other regulations where you have a standard or scheme that's stand by its own, in the context of GDPR certification, indeed, the criteria that you are using for the certification are used indirectly to assess the compliance with the regulation itself. And it's on this basis that the Data Protection Authority are approving and selecting a certification scheme. So it's about legal compliance, which is, again, something that's so very distinct from other certification scheme, because there is no compromise. It's not about, oh, do we like it, more or less. It's really about, are we complying with the regulation or not? So really trying to provide the most accurate, reliable, and trustable evidence of compliance. It's about also evolving requirements. Again, that's another element, because when you are assessing a data processing or a target of evaluation against a fixed set of criteria, it's quite simple. In this case, we have jurisprudences, we have soft law publication by EDPB, we have new regulations which are appearing, which means that we need to globally, let me just do one thing, we need globally to follow the evolution of the regulation in order to ensure that the certification is well as aligned with the requirements. And finally, last but not least, it's also a certification which implies to assess and certify a very large diversity of data processing. Two main articles in the GDPR for the certification, even if there are over 70 references to certification across the GDPR. GDPR certification is mentioned for selecting data processors, for international cross-border data transfer, for many different aspects. But there are two main articles. Article 42, which is framing the scheme itself, what is required for a certification scheme, and that's what led to the recognition of Europrivacy as European Data Protection Seal. And then we have Article 43, which provides the requirements for certification bodies to be qualified to deliver certificates. And these aspects, as you know, Europrivacy has been approved as official European Data Protection Seal under Article 42. But in parallel, since it has been approved, the different national authorities had adopted national procedures, and we have our official partners, certification bodies, which are currently going through the Article 43 procedures to be fully recognized and authorized to deliver formal certification. So in a couple of months, we expect to have the first certification bodies able to formally deliver the first official certificates. As a European Data Protection Seal, it means that Europrivacy is legally, formally, and materially recognized by all EU jurisdictions, which means that the certificates delivered with a seal under Article 42 by as certification bodies authorized under Article 43, will be officially and legally valid and recognized across all EU jurisdictions. It is, of course, not a guarantee against any fine, for instance, but it is a very strong indication, first of all, of the goodwill of the data control data process, so the proactivity of the controller or processor to comply with the regulation, and a very clear and systematic assessment of the compliance with factual evidence that can be used to document the compliance in case of questions, in case of inspection or litigation. An important element to bear in mind that Europrivacy is the result of, I would say, about 10 years of research. It started before the GDPR itself, and it is directly, I would say, the child of the European Research Program. So it has been researched, developed, designed, refined, tested, enhanced through the European Research Program, which has enabled to bring together experts from different regions of Europe, from different jurisdictions, to collectively work together in order to ensure that we have a scheme which is as reliable as possible, which is addressing also the specificities of the different national jurisdictions. The scheme itself is continuously supervised and managed by an international board of experts, the Europrivacy International Board of Experts, which is in charge of continuously monitoring, maintaining, overviewing the scheme. And for instance, if there is a jurisprudency, the board will directly review, discuss, and see if there is any need to update or adapt any one of the criteria or guidance or information provided to the different stakeholders. It is formally managed by the European Center for Certification and Privacy, based in Luxembourg. And as we already mentioned it has been officially adopted by EDPB last October, the official European Data Protection Seal. The way the scheme is developed, the way Europrivacy is developed, is really in an I would say, ecosystem approach, kind of holistic approach, where ECCP is really focused on its role of scheme owner, which means that the European Center for Certification and Privacy itself will not deliver certification. It will not deliver consulting to companies which would like to apply Europrivacy. It is focused on delivering and making available the criteria, on maintaining the criteria, on working on extensions, on providing online resources, documentations, and providing and managing the academy to train and validate the quality or the qualification of the different experts, auditors, or implementers. But ECCP will not deliver certification directly. So it is working very closely with an ecosystem of different stakeholders, first and foremost with the supervisory authorities, to ensure that the criteria are well aligned with EDPB's provisions and guidelines, but also taking into account the feedbacks of the national supervisory authorities. So that's a very important element. Of course, still a very strong link with the research community. So we are working on several extensions of Europrivacy in line with upcoming European regulations, such as the European Health Data Space, the Data Act, and other regulations. And working through European Research Project with the European Commission and with other partners to ensure that we can deliver solutions which are fully aligned with the needs to demonstrate, to document and demonstrate compliance. And then we have three main categories of partners, which are very important. Consulting and law firms. So we have partners, which are, and you will find the list on the Europrivacy website, which are mainly helping other companies or public administrations to document and to prepare the certification of the data processing. And this consulting and law firms company have been selected to ensure that we are only qualified and high-level, highly qualified partners delivering services with Europrivacy. So it's really, the idea is to build an ecosystem of trust. Of course, we cannot provide an absolute guarantee, but we try to ensure that whenever someone wants to contact an official partner of Europrivacy, this partner has the adequate expertise, qualification, track record to deliver highly reliable services. Then we have solution providers who are partners who are delivering solutions, softwares, tools to support the compliance and the implementation of the Europrivacy criteria. And then, of course, certification bodies, which are in charge of delivering formal certification, which means also that if you're interested to get a certification and a certification service, there is no business lock-in. You can really choose among different certification bodies, request different offers, and choose the most adequate one for your needs and expectations. Some elements regarding the value proposition. So why should someone consider using Europrivacy? Surprisingly, I would say the first value proposition that we want to highlight is not so much to get a certificate, it's to identify and reduce the legal and financial risk. Indeed, the fact that we have now officially recognized criteria to assess the globally overall the compliance with the regulation enables to have quite more factual elements and more systematic methodology and process to identify potential non-compliance, to identify potential gaps with the regulation, and then to address them and to reduce the surface of risk for the applicant. And that's probably the first and most important element I would like to highlight. Then, of course, the natural follow-up is to check and demonstrate the compliance, so to be able to demonstrate it, to communicate it, and to improve the reputation and access to market. It is also a way to clearly build trust and confidence. And we always stress these two notions, which in other languages sometimes are merged together, but in English, I think they are clearly distinguished. Trust, meaning building trust with third parties, with partners, with the data subjects, with the public at large, but also building confidence. It means to have trust in yourself, in oneself, that you are doing things right, that you at least did the most of what you could to demonstrate, to assess, demonstrate, and validate that you're on the safe side. And that's very important. We know that for quite a number of companies, it is quite stressful to ensure compliance. And in this context, to be sure or to have mechanisms and tools to document and demonstrate the compliance is something very valuable. Then, of course, another element, which is characteristics of Europrivacy, which was developed in the research program, the ability to address not only the GDPR requirements, but to easily be extendable to non-EU jurisdictions and requirements. So we are currently working on about 20 non-EU jurisdictions, such as, of course, easy one like UK. I mean, easy, not easy in the sense they have the specificities, but very close to GDPR, Switzerland, but also other regulations like Brazil, Japan, South Korea, Israel, California Data Protection Act, Data Act, and so on. And that's another element. So the possibility to use methodology to assess compliance, not only with the GDPR, but also with the EU national obligations and non-EU jurisdictions regulations. Then to develop competitive advantages, that's of course, turn compliance into value and revenues. And that's a very important element. We know, and probably most of you know, that often for DPOs or compliance officers, it's quite a challenge to get an adequate set of resources to do their work. It's an obligation, so all responsible companies will allocate resources to do the work. But it's not always easy to get the optimal level of resources, because often for companies, compliance is perceived as a cost. It's perceived as something that is needs to have, you have to handle it, you have to comply with it, but you want to minimize the cost for it because it's just perceived as a cost. And what is very interesting with Europrivacy and with formal GDPR certification is that you transform what used to be a cost and what used to be something almost invisible into an asset, into something valuable, into something that you can communicate, something that you can claim, you can highlight, you can present. And it's really about valuing the compliance, which turns the dynamics in a different direction, more positive, more constructive. It's really a way to recognize, also to acknowledge the work which has been done by the DPOs and compliance officers. It's also a mechanism which is directly mentioned in the GDPR as a mechanism to support cross-border data transfer. On this topic, the EDPB is still working on the guidelines, so we are still waiting to have the final guidelines for the use of certification for international cross-border data transfer, but that's something which is in process. And we hope that in a very near future, you will be able to use also Article 42 as a mechanism for international cross-border data transfer. And then the possibility also to use the certification, of course, to assess the adequacy of the merger set in place, for instance, by processors. So if you are a data controller, you know that you are responsible, liable for the way your processor will process the data you shared with the processor. You have a legal responsibility. You have to demonstrate that you have really done all your due diligence to assess, to monitor, to control that every one of your processors is really complying with the GDPR, which is not easy because your processor itself may use a sub-processor. So it's not an easy exercise, but it's a fundamental obligation. And fortunately, one element which can simplify a little bit the process and the burden is the fact that the GDPR recognizes that certification under Article 42 of data processor can be used as an adequate means of assessing the level of compliance of the processor. So a very interesting mechanism to reduce the surface of risk for the different controllers at no cost, I would say, and a way for the data processors to develop a competitive advantage. Then another characteristics of Europrivacy, the fact that the certification scheme is used to assess the compliance with, as we mentioned before, with a set of obligations which are evolving, which means that on the ECCP side and the Europrivacy International Board of Experts, we dedicate quite a lot of effort to monitor the evolution of the regulations at European level, to national levels, so jurisprudences, EDPB publications. And whenever we identify evolution or change in the normative framework that requires to adapt the scheme or the compliance obligations, we systematically review it, we analyze it, we discuss it, we potentially adopt some changes to the criteria or to the requirements to address the evolution of the law, the normative framework. And then, of course, we inform all our ecosystem, all partners, and the certified or the companies or public administration which have certified data processing. And this is something very interesting because it contributes also to increase or reduce the risk of missing some important changes in the regulations. And finally, of course, last but not least, the fact that the certification under Article 42 is, as European Data Protection Seal, is legally recognized by all EU member states. Some characteristics, I will go through it a little bit more quickly. One of them I mentioned is the fact that it is continuously updated, extensible to complementary national obligations. We discussed about the seal. But another element which can be interesting is the fact that the scheme has been developed in the context of the European Research Program. And then since its inception, we have been working on addressing risks related to specific technologies, such as blockchain or DLT, Internet of Things, smart cities, artificial intelligence. Everybody is discussing now or refocusing, having a strong interest in open AI. And we have specific criteria in the certification scheme to address risk related to data processing that are using artificial intelligence. It is highly reliable in the sense that we really worked on addressing all the obligations contained in the GDPR, which may have an impact or which constitutes a legal risk, either for the data subjects or for the applicant, the data controller, the data processor. So we really try to really assess all the different obligations. We worked a lot also on time and cost efficiency, on the efficiency of the methodology, how to enhance the level of reliability, how to reduce the risk of subjective interpretation of the criteria, and at the same time, how to enhance the efficiency of the assessment procedure to make it as scalable as possible and to avoid turning the certification into too complex process that would exclude SMEs from using it. So it's really an important part of the work, which was focused on enhancing the efficiency. It is fully aligned with ISO standards, ISO 17065. It is also easily combinable with ISO 27001 and 27701. And in particular, for instance, if you have a valid ISO 27001 certification that encompasses your target of evaluation for data processing certification, you can use it as an equivalent to a subset of the Europrivacy criteria, which enables you to shorten a little bit the assessment, as long as the ISO certification is fully valid and effective in assessing the security measures for the target of evaluation. It's comprehensive. I will skip the other elements. Fundamentally, I would say, and that's one of the key messages we want to pass, it's not so much about delivering a certificate or a paper, or it's really about valuing compliance, or valuing the work which has been done. It's a very efficient methodology to assess the level of compliance with the regulation, and a way to communicate it, a way to acknowledge the work which has been done, and again, to turn what is used to be perceived as a cost into an asset, whether it is a public administration, company, in terms of trust, in terms of confidence. This is something very important. What does an applicant need to start certifying a data processing? Fundamentally, to comply with the applicable data protection law and regulations. That's the key element. Then there are a few additional requirements. The applicant needs to have a DPO and a record of data processing activities. It's already the case of most companies, but it's not a universal obligation. If you're a small SME, you do not necessarily need to have a DPO or to have a record of data processing activities. In our case, we consider that such functions are fundamental. They are part of the architecture of trust in terms of compliance, and that DPOs and record of data processing activities are mandatory to formally certified data processing activities with Europrivacy. Otherwise, we had a long discussion, but we think it's not reliable enough if you don't have at least these two fundamental mechanisms in place. Then we need, or you need to prepare and document the conformity with the Europrivacy criteria. So fundamentally, the journey is quite simple. You start by documenting the conformity, which enables you to check the compliance and to reduce the risks already. So since the beginning, already you have a return on investment that you already are able, and usually all the feedbacks we have received so far, there is almost always interesting identification of risks that were not that were under the radar, if I may say, that were not necessarily perceived. Then it's to certify the conformity in order to value and communicate the compliance. But the journey doesn't stop there. Once you get certified, you will get on a regular basis, as it is required by the EDPB guidelines, surveillance audit to ensure that you are still complying, that your data processing activity is still complying with the regulation. But in parallel, what we try to do is also to provide a whole set of resources, tools, in order to make it as easy, user-friendly, as supportive as possible, and also to enable those who have certified the data processing to continue improving the compliance. It's not, the idea is not to say, oh, I just respect the regulation, that's good. It's to continue enhancing the compliance and to be able to collaborate also with other companies, or to learn from other DPOs or other certification process to continue enhancing the level of compliance and to enjoy it. Another important characteristics, as you all know, probably the EDPB and the DG Justice both have considered that a certification at the level of a whole company is not reliable enough. It's not granular enough. It's not trustable. Indeed, it's too large. So the EDPB and the GDPR requires that certification be focused on certification of data processing activities, which means a few things. One, you cannot certify a data processing which does not include personal data, which is not involving a controller or a processor. So it has to be a real data processing activities with at least a controller or a processor involved. The good news for that is that you can really focus on priority data processing to start with. You don't need to have everything 100% ready to start considering a certification. You can already work on the priority data processing. And by doing so, you will identify areas of improvement also for the other data processing. But the idea is that usually you start by identifying two priority data processing. You start working on them, documenting them. And then by going through this process, you will already enhance a certain number of requirements or adaptations in terms of technical and organizational measures to set in place. The second element that you can really go through the journey progressively, you can identify data processing that requires to be certified. And usually if you work with one of our official partners, they will prepare for you a certification plan to really analyze all your data processing and then to cluster the data processing that would be highly relevant to be certified as quickly as possible, the data processing that are relevant for certifications, but where there is less urgency, maybe less priorities, and then all the data processing where in principle certification doesn't make much sense. You can still use, of course, the criteria to document the compliance, but having a certification is not always required. So the idea is not to certify all the data processing, but to have a well-targeted, focused strategy in terms of certification. And the whole process aims really at moving and helping you to move from a zone of risk areas to a zone of compliance, and then to continue enhancing the compliance once you are certified. Fundamentally, if we would have to summarize it, it's about assessing and documenting the compliance, certifying to value the compliance, and then really to continue enhancing the compliance and enjoying the fact that you have a certain number of data processing which are really strongly assessed, documented, and where the risk for you is highly reduced for you and for the data subjects, of course. Few elements regarding welcoming and how to implement it practically. So first of all, we have developed a certain number of platforms to support the journey to embrace Europrivacy. The first one is a public website, and you can have a look at it. It's really high-level information. It's quite complete. It gives a good overview of what is Europrivacy, what is the purpose, what is the scope of certification, and you have a few tools which can be interesting. For instance, we have GDPR certification cost saving estimators, again, to enable you or your partners or clients to, by themselves, estimate the hidden risks in terms of non-compliance, to have a better idea of what are currently the costs they are exposed to by not being 100% compliant with the regulation. Then we have a very important platform, which is the Europrivacy Online Academy. And my colleague Renata will give you more details about it, which is really the platform which has been developed to enable DPOs, implementers, auditors to learn how to use the scheme, to also validate the knowledge of the scheme, and to be qualified as either implementer and auditor. So that's a very important tool also to ensure a homogeneous implementation of the scheme across different countries and by different experts. And finally, last but not least, we have the Europrivacy resource and community website, which is a very important platform because it's where you will find all the relevant resources and documentation, criteria, guidelines, templates to implement Europrivacy. We have a few other tools like DPID, Privacy Pack coming from the research that are made available, but which are continuously improved too. Then Welcome Pack. That's something we developed I would say we co-created with our partners to provide a kind of service pack, which is valid for 3 years for companies which want to start implementing Europrivacy. Provides quite a number of important resources, such as, for instance, simply an introductory course for the DPOs, but also the DPO access to the Europrivacy platform of online resources for 3 years, flash alerts. So if there is any regulatory change, you will be informed also about the changes you need to address. Privacy Pack, the first publication on the official registry, the certificates publication fees, also the possibility to engage with other companies and partners and official partners who are active in Europrivacy. And that's maybe another element. Again, as I mentioned it at the very beginning of the presentation, it's really about building an ecosystem of trust. That's why we have an ecosystem which is evolving, but which is highly selective to ensure that the partners we accept have strong evidence and strong track records of expertise in the domain in order to ensure that the whole ecosystem can provide a high level and a high quality level of trust and compliance. The process usually, if you want to implement it, there is possibility to apply and receive offers. So if you go on Europrivacy website, you can either contact directly the official partners and request them some offers, or you can use there is a form. And then if you complete this form, if you fill this form, we will share with partners, with official partners. Then once you have received an offer, or you will start with your partner, with the implementer, to prepare and document your compliance. And your partner, the official partner, will help you in this process. And then once you have fully documented the compliance of your data processing, you will select a certification body. Again, you can choose among different certification bodies. And then the certification body will audit the level of compliance. And if your data processing is adequately documented with the adequate, relevant, and satisfactory evidences, then you will get a certificate. And then, of course, you need to continue maintaining the compliance. That's why, again, the community website is very important. And that's a regular approach. Of course, you can also try to do it by yourself, but we really encourage you to leverage on the ecosystem of partners. If you do it by yourself, then you need really to start by training your team on the academy to really understand how to use the scheme. Again, the scheme is not complicated, but it's important to have a strong and robust understanding of the scheme in order to be sure that you are not mishandling or being misled by the way you will implement it. Then the community website, certification body, again, you will need anyway to request the support of a certification body and the community website. But again, the usual approach is really to leverage on the official ecosystem of Europrivacy official partners. Now, let me pass the floor to my colleague Renata, who will tell you more about the online academy. Renata, you have the floor.
Thank you, Sebastian. And as you mentioned, I will be presenting what the Europrivacy Academy is. So if you could jump into the next slide. The Europrivacy Academy basically trains qualified experts for assessing and certifying the compliance of data processing in line with the Europrivacy methodology. Through an online exam, participating experts can validate their knowledge of the Europrivacy certification scheme, the criteria, and all the other associated requirements. As mentioned by Sebastian, and I really want to highlight this, that the Academy is a very important first step in the journey that ensures that all qualified Europrivacy implementers and auditors engage in a homogeneous and adequate implementation and validation process. This whole academy is open for DPOs, data protection officers, technical experts, lawyers, compliance officers, and auditors. Next slide, please. So the Europrivacy Academy provides a program of courses that act as, you can imagine them as building blocks that you can follow in a sequential manner. We have 3 courses, which includes the introductory, the implementer, and the auditor courses. And the way the training is built, that means that basically, if you would like to take the implementer course, you have to first pass the introductory course. And similarly, if you are going to aim for becoming a Europrivacy auditor, you first need to pass the first 2 courses to be able to participate in the auditor course. This method basically ensures that you retain knowledge and you test your understanding of the different elements before moving into and building upon your foundation. So how does the registration work? Sorry, yes, exactly. You have 3 training options on the academy. The first is the introductory training, which only includes the introductory course. This training is ideal for DPOs or anyone who is interested in how Europrivacy works, but don't necessarily want to know more about the details. Then we have the implementer training, which includes both the introductory and the implementer courses, which is ideal for those who wish to facilitate the implementation of Europrivacy requirements. And then third, but not least, is the auditor training, which includes all the 3 courses that I just mentioned. And this is what you need if you want to obtain a qualification as a Europrivacy auditor. But now let's dive into the different courses a little bit. So we have, of course, the introductory course, which I mentioned, as teaches you what the Europrivacy certification is, what is the scope and purpose of the Europrivacy certification scheme, and what are the general principles. This course includes 4 modules, 4 mini quizzes, an online exam with 20 questions, and takes around 3 hours to complete. And of course, if you pass the exam, you obtain a certificate of completion. Then the next slide, please. We have the implementer course, which teaches you about the implementation of Europrivacy and guides you on how to ensure the compliance of data processing activities, as well as on how to maintain certifications. This course includes 6 modules, 6 mini quizzes, an online exam of 50 questions, and takes around 13 hours to complete. If you pass the exam, of course, you will get a certificate of completion. Then we have the auditor course, which is basically an in-depth understanding of how Europrivacy works, and will teach you how to assess the conformity of data processing activities. This course details the complete audit process of Europrivacy and includes 9 modules, 9 mini quizzes, an online exam of 100 questions, and takes around 14 hours to complete. Next slide, please. Excuse me. But what is included in each of the courses? So each of them consists of video modules and the mini quiz after each module to test your understanding and prepare you for your exam. You will also receive a handbook with a mock exam that will help you understand the course a little bit better and then to validate your knowledge before you actually take the final online exam. And for the implementer and auditor courses, we also included the certification scheme and the criteria to facilitate your preparation. Next slide, please. Once you successfully pass any of your courses, you will receive a certificate, and each certificate has a unique identifier. This number can be validated through the certificate authentication tool we have on the Academy. Next slide, please. So last but not least, what is the value proposition of the Academy, why you should join and why you should consider joining our ecosystem of qualified experts. Through the Academy, you can learn in an agile manner how to use Europrivacy and obtain a qualification as expert. This gives you a ticket to join our community of other qualified experts through the Europrivacy resource and the community and resource website. And as a member, you can benefit from discounts on services we offer. In the end, every Europrivacy process is a continuously improvement, and we appreciate your support and looking forward to further developing the platform based on your recommendations. And as a special offer, if you jump to the next slide, we have a nice discount code for all of the webinar participants. So if you use this code, you can register to the implementer or the auditor training at a discounted rate. I would like to mention that once you purchase a course, you get the lifetime access, and you will be informed of any updates regarding the training if we include new information or if something changes. The training itself is completely self-paced, and once you purchase a course, you have no time constraints to complete the training and no time limits on how long you can follow the modules and take the exam. So that was my part, and now I would like to give the floor to my colleague Adrian, who will introduce you to the community website.
Yes, thank you very much, Renata. I hope you can all hear me. Indeed, I would like to introduce a little bit the Europrivacy community and resources website. As it was mentioned by both Renata and Sebastian, the idea of this website is to make available the core set of documentation that is necessary to implement the Europrivacy certification scheme, and to provide a wide set of tools to our experts, our partners, and to any relevant or interested individual who would like to know more about the scheme. The Europrivacy community website, in this sense, seeks to both provide the documentation that, as it was mentioned in the academy, you might be able to obtain some of these elements, but the community has the full set of resources, the full set of templates, tools, and other relevant documentary elements that you will need to actually implement the scheme. But then it also provides some social forums and other solutions for getting information across, learning from other experts in the field about, what are the best ways to implement the scheme and how specific actions are to be taken, but then also to raise questions and to request additional features from the International Board of Experts to obtain flash alerts and to be featured in the pool of experts that we're currently developing. So maybe, Sebastian, you can just, excellent, yes, thank you very much. Go to the next slide. We have three types of users. So we have the DPO, the qualified implementer, and the qualified auditor. This, of course, is related to the role and certification that has been, or that is to be pursued, but then also to the latest training that the individual has obtained in the academy. Next slide, please. And then, yes, this is a quick outlook of the dashboard as it is shown to the DPOs, and a full list of the solutions that are made available to the different types of users. So as you can see, we have in the dashboard the option to showcase news. So in here we have news not only about the certification scheme, but about the latest news from EDPB, from the European Data Protection Supervisor, and other relevant authorities. We have a library where you have the documents that are coming in from every single one of the data protection authorities, from the EDPB, and in general, the top and latest developments on data protection. We try to compile them in there and to make them available and searchable so that you have a one-stop shop for obtaining information surrounding the implementation of the scheme. Then you have, of course, calendar of events where you're going to be able to see and to register to different actions such as this webinars, but then also to the upcoming events such as the Privacy Symposium. And then we have the resource EP resources library, where you have the actual core set of documentation that is made available regarding the documents and the scheme proper. So in there you have, I believe, 50 plus sets of documents, templates, and other elements that are clearly made available in a way that are as easy as possible for you to just jump in, understand how the scheme works, and what would be the necessary steps to perform in order to pursue a certification. We have in here, yes, a number of different examples. The webinar section, for example, includes not only these webinars that we're making right now, but then also the outputs of the Privacy Symposium and other relevant webinars that are made available. We have a solution where an organization might be able to find experts both for implementing the scheme or for additional potential activities that might be of relevance. And then next slide, please. Yes, and here we have the example of the library where you have documents coming in from the data protection authorities, including the laws and so on and so forth. Next slide, please. and the EP resources, where you have, as we mentioned before, the different types of documents that are provided. Quick clarification: the documents that are made available in the Academy are usually quite limited in usability, because the idea is to enable the individuals that are taking the exams to be able to complete the exams, but also we need to basically make sure that there's a clear separation and that there's, they cannot be used during the exams. The documents that are made available in the EP resources are completely available, usable. So you have Excel files, documents, and other relevant variations of the files for actual implementation of the scheme in use. Next slide, please. And so, yeah, we have, again, a quick note on what is the purpose, or why should we join the Europrivacy community. Again, the idea is that you're not only going to be able to access all the required Europrivacy documentation and get up-to-date criteria and requirements, which is a core element because of the fact that the criteria are usually frequently updated. You will need to be up to speed on this, receive the alert messages, and then also to join the community, connect with other experts, showcase your different areas of interest and areas of expertise, and of course to support and co-design the different services that are made available to the different experts through this site. Next slide, please. I believe we have also the same voucher for a discount in case any one of you were to be interested in pursuing the community and resources site at a discounted investment price. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Adrian. I think it was, as it was mentioned, there is really these two elements are very important. The Academy to train experts, DPOs, and again, if you are used to ISO standard, the learning curve is not too steep, but you still need to understand what are the rules to be able to apply it adequately. And then the community website where you find all the information. It's really the knowledge base on Europrivacy. So for instance, for each and every criterion, you have detailed FAQ. If you need more information to understand, or if you have questions, you'll find a lot. Then some practical actions. What you can do if you're interested to apply Europrivacy is, of course, to go on the Academy to learn how to use it. You can even simply go through the introductory course, at least to have an idea. But if you're really interested to use it professionally, we encourage you to do at least the implementers course, or potentially the auditors course if you want to move further. Then the community website, which is where you find all the documentation you have. These two platforms indeed are also enabling to support the development of the ecosystem around Europrivacy. So by registering to this platform, subscribing to this platform, we also support the work to continuously enrich the information which is provided, the resources. Then what you can do, which is also something that is being used by quite a number of organizations that we have heard of, is to use the Europrivacy criteria to document the compliance. Whether or not you want to certify data processing, the fact that you have formal criteria that you can use to document the compliance is something very useful, because then you have a clear, structured, systematic documentation in case of inspection, in case of questions from data subjects. You can really demonstrate and communicate your level of compliance. You are welcome to connect to the Europrivacy website, the main website, and to request offers from official partners. You will find all the information online. And of course, we invite you, if you want to be informed about the upcoming developments, to follow us on LinkedIn at Europrivacy. Then another thing you can do, which is also a very simple action, is to request your service providers to be certified, so your data processors, because that's also something where you can reduce your risk without any cost for you, just by requesting your processors to certify the data processing they are providing to you as a service.